Now, almost 30 years ago, when David Blunkett was still a local councillor, the last act in the miners' strike was being played out. For those who'd held out for nearly 12 months, the return to work was a devastating moment of defeat. We've been back to the former pit village of Edlington, near Doncaster, to speak to the men and women at the heart of the dispute, to find out how they view those events now. What started as a dispute over the closure of pits soon became a battle for survival.
You can see these images here, they actually meant business. You know, there were no rules. I think the rules of policing had absolutely gone out of the window. They had a free hand to do what they wanted, when they wanted, and how they wanted.
It were a frightening place to be. And if you're unfortunate to get caught, or be up front, same as myself and several people, you got hurt. But that was the challenge you had to take up, because you were fighting for your job, fighting for your life, your livelihood.
Well, this was Orgreave. I never missed a day at Orgreave. I went every day, and we had a bit of this running about and getting chased, and quite scary when the horses came out. But you learnt to run away from them and try and keep well back. Obviously, the minute the police got hold of you, you were getting a kick in.
Police. I suppose they had to be controlled because they were. Oh gosh, there was somebody there I knew. Look at all though. I never realised that there were as many police there as that. That's a lady, look there. She's battering somebody with her handbag. Gosh.
I remember looking at the police and thinking that this is not the country that we live in. Look at them geared up. Shields, boxes on, oh dear me. How can that be right?
As the strike began to bite, communities pulled together to feed those who were hungry.
The soup kitchens, they changed it into a social occasion. You know, so children had come along, families had come along, so you know, you had that collective spirit operating within a village.
Some people would say, and talking to you all, a loss of dignity coming to somewhere like this.
Well, first time I come, I felt as if I were grovelling sort of thing, you know, begging. But you get used to it.
You'd rather do this than go back to work?
Definitely.
Our miners' welfare is about 100 yards from where I live now, and those ladies were absolutely wonderful. You couldn't go out and do your weekly shop and things like that. You had to rely on help from family and friends, and the longer it went on, the worse it got.
Basically, I mean, they stopped our coal. Part of our wages was that we used to get a coal allowance. And the minute we went on strike, they stopped delivering coal to us. And all our houses were coal-fired. For that simple reason, we got free coal.
I was filling coal up there with my son, riddling it, clearing the snow, riddling it, and strenuous work. And we would get to maybe 8 or 10 bags, which the police were monitoring and watched. And then when you got to about the 10th bag, they would come over with our Alsatians and the Stanley knife and slit every bag.
The strike wore on, and some miners returned to work. It was the moment that divided communities.
The word is scab. And I've got things in my head about people that I do know that literally and actually left the country. There are still things like that written on our local walls. They can be washed out, they can be painted out, but you will still find them back on again. That's awful for them and their families.
They all say it. At the back of a man is a good woman. And they took as much brunt of it as a striking miner, because they were at home cooking, putting a meal on your table out of nothing, because there were no money. And without that backup, that's probably why a lot of people crumbled, because the wives crumbled. No money. Get to work.
We were lucky in Edlington. We're a pretty solid community, and I think even at height at strike we had 14 who actually crossed the line. Most of them we could have expected them. Even now, 30 years on, it still pulls heavily on you. You know, I think it's, well, traitor's too kind a word, but that's what they did.
You're gutted, aren't you? Because you think that you're solid. And it hurts that you know that people on that bus you've worked with, or you've spoke to, or you've grown up with. And it just, well, it's heartbreaking, to be honest. But you have to move on, don't you?
On March the 3rd, 1985, the NUM's executive narrowly voted in favour of a return to work. The march back began.
We started at one pub on the edge of the village. All the men on the road. The traffic stopped and they all went back. The men marching.
We marched down the road and back into pit yard. Really emotive day. We all stuck us chests out, we all smiled, but I think we were all crying inside. It was really emotive.
You went back with your head held high because you'd stuck it out till end, but you were deflated also because we'd lost, and the only people that beat us were his own people. I don't think Thatcher beat us. His own people beat us.
At one stage at this colliery, the management didn't count for anything. It were the men that counted, and they could be bullied into changing the minds of the management. When we came back to work, we knew that wasn't going to happen again, that they were going to get the big boots out and really start kicking, and they did.
6 months after the strike, Edlington's pit closed down. 75 years of coal mining came to an end.
What we as a village, what we had and what the miners actually paid for wasn't just the miners' welfare. It was the swimming pool, it was the bowling green, it was the cricket field, it was the football pitch. The funds from miners' wages, they used to pay threepence a week to provide all these things. And ask me now, where are they?
There was activities in the village, there was butchers' shops, there was grocers, greengrocers, there was all sorts of type of things going on in the village. And because you had 1,600 men that were going to and from the pit, taking a wage home, the village was vibrant. But there's no vibrancy in the village now. No, you've got shutters on the windows.
When the pit were open, there were no drugs or burglaries because it was policed by the working man. And today, it's a common sight of several police cars running up and down through Edlington because of the drug problem that's been, I think, created from unemployment.
We lost the strike, we lost the pit, and we lost the village within 4 or 5 years. Generations in this village have not worked. They've been driven to alcohol and drugs, antisocial behaviour, poor housing, lack of investment, lack of work on infrastructure. And I think it's only the last few years we've actually seen things changing. And, well, that's took 30 years.